Canadian-born, Nashville-living country artist MacKenzie Porter is my guest today, and you are going to love this episode. MacKenzie is here to talk about her new album and her new baby, but she's also got a pretty great story of how she got where she is today. Growing up on a cattle ranch in Alberta, MacKenzie always had a love for music, but had to balance that with an acting career on a popular TV show while she was still in Canada. We talk about what made her move to Nashville, what that was like, and how she landed a record deal with Big Machine Records. I ask her for her advice for someone trying to pursue the same dream. MacKenzie also shares the story of how her chart-topping duet with Dustin Lynch came to be, and how a follow-back on Instagram was the first clue it might be happening. Since moving to Nashville, she married her songwriting husband, Jake, who you might recognize from the hit TV show Nashville, and they recently welcomed their first baby girl. I asked MacKenzie what she thinks life will look like touring with a baby, and if there's a difference between being a mom in the music business and being a dad. She's just released a 19-song album, and she's currently touring it, family in tow. So, without further ado, here's my conversation with MacKenzie Porter. Well, welcome to the podcast, MacKenzie Porter. I'm so excited to have you here today.
I'm so excited to chat with you.
I was saying, I don't think we've met. I feel like we maybe have been in the same place. But
I've definitely seen you on Instagram.
Maybe. I mean, I knew who you were, but I feel like I've never been actually introduced to you. So
yes.
Thank you for being here.
Nice to meet you.
You have so much going on. I was kind of doing all my research on you and wow, you're very busy. You, first of all, most importantly, congratulations, because you just had a new baby.
I did.
A baby girl.
Yes.
Bowen. Do you call her Bowie? Or
we thought we'd call her Bowie, but we've been calling her real name Bowen.
Oh, you have? Okay.
Yes. And then, but we also call her Bojangle and Bocephus. Every nickname you can think of.
You're never, she's going to grow up with that and be like, why did you call me that? And you're like, I don't know. It just looked cute when you were little.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, congratulations. Okay, so I'm going to ask you more about her later, but also you have a brand new album that you just have put out with 19 songs. That's not normal, right? That's a lot of songs.
It's a lot of songs,
okay.
Yeah. But I hadn't put out a big body of work for so long.
Yeah.
And I had been writing songs, and we started cutting, and it just kept going. And we were going to, I think, narrow it down, and we just never did. We were they all deserve.
They were all so good.
Well, I mean, you said it, but
it's okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I think it was just why would we not put these out?
Mm-hmm.
And it is a big album, but we had 9 come out before the last 10. So it was a little bit more digestible.
Okay.
That slow drop.
And it's your first debut in the U.S. with your album on Big Loud Records.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah.
What has that been like?
Oh my gosh. They're the best team. I mean, they really, I feel like they think it's a small label. Mm-hmm. So we're not dealing with 800 people that you have to ask before anything gets rolling, which is so amazing. But I met Joey Moy, who's my producer, another Canadian, back in 2015. And he was kind of my champion since day one and signed me to...
He was already in Nashville at the time? Okay.
Yeah, he was at the time doing all the Florida Georgia line and still doing Nickelback stuff. And then I met him, and I would just the crazy part is I hung out with him. You know Dallas Smith, right? So Dallas records with Joey, and Dallas is you should come meet Joey. I think you guys would click musically.
Is this in Canada at the time? Okay.
Yeah. And I was yes, I want, I knew Joey, I knew his reputation and what he did. And I went to hang out with him in Dallas, and then I found his email online, and I emailed him afterwards. I'm great hanging out with you. You should totally sign me to a record deal. You should do my record. It's going to be great. And he's no, but you can come hang out with me, and we'll little events with the label. He'd be come meet Seth England, one of the other owners of the label, or come meet Craig Wiseman. And he was just kind of inviting me places. Yeah. So I kind of knew that maybe he was interested a little bit in my music. And then eventually they offered me a deal.
So how old were you at that time?
I would have been 26.
And were you in Canada, or you were now here by that point?
I was living here.
Okay. When did you move to Nashville?
I moved at 25. Or was it 25 or 24? 25, I think.
Okay. Because you grew up in Canada.
Yes.
In Alberta.
Yes.
On a ranch, is that right?
Yes. Outside of Medicine Hat.
Medicine Hat.
Have you heard of it?
Yeah, I've been to Medicine Hat a few times.
Oh my gosh, probably for shows or something.
Yeah.
Yes, very small little town. Yeah. But my parents still live there. My sister still lives there. My grandma, everybody.
Did you always know you wanted to do music?
Yes.
You started in acting, right? Or you did music as a kid?
Did music as a kid, casually, was in classical music lessons and in a family band.
Right.
But I started professionally like acting and making money at 15 on different TV series and stuff like that. And then after high school, I moved to Vancouver to just like really hit acting hard and started writing songs there and went to recording school to learn how to like use Pro Tools and stuff like that and started sending my songs, cold sending them to Sony Publishing, which I'm now signed to. I like to cold email people.
I was going to say, yeah, well, that's just like go-getter. Like, I know what I want. Yes.
I think I was so naive that I'm like just figured that if I sent it and asked, then they would say yes. And a lot of times they say no, but sometimes they say yes.
Which is the gift of being young and being naive is you're like, oh, I'm sure they'll love it as soon as they hear my demo tape.
Yeah, I still like try to come from a place of that because I do love like if you don't ask, you don't get it.
It's so true.
And sometimes if you ask, you don't get it too. But whatever.
Well, no's the second best answer, right?
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. Okay. So when you were acting, so you were on a really popular TV show at the time, right? Travelers? Is that right? Okay. So you have this popularity, which a lot of people probably would think, that's awesome. Like, she's got this acting dream and making money and has this job. Were you still feeling like not fulfilled because music was what you wanted to do?
Yeah. I remember like being in Vancouver. That's where we shot the show. And at the time there was another girl on the label that was like, just out there like doing shows and recording. And I was so jealous to be like, I wish so bad I was doing that. Even though I loved being on Travelers and I miss it now, but you always kind of want what you don't have. And I definitely like felt, like there was a part of me that was not being fulfilled even just on the show.
Okay. So how do you actually end up moving to Nashville? Because it's one thing to say, I want to. I mean, also you have all like the immigration stuff and everything like that.
Such a process.
The red tape. But how do you actually end up getting, like saying like, I'm doing this, Did you quit acting at the time to come to Nashville?
No, I still was doing it. So I actually moved, I was in Vancouver. I moved to LA for pilot season with like 5 girls, 5 actresses. We lived in one house. We were all auditioning. I remember
fun.
It was so fun.
I didn't know pilot season was a thing. It's just a ton of pilots airing and you audition?
Casting. They don't really do it as much anymore, but this was in 2015. We all went. And I remember being like, I don't know if it's a good idea to live in a house with 5 actresses. We're all auditioning for the same parts. It was truly the best time of my life.
It wasn't like cattiness?
No, and my best friends to this day. Like we had such a good time and partied probably way too much. But so I moved there, and at the time I was just doing it like illegally, basically. Like I didn't have a green card or a visa or anything. But I was hoping I could get on a TV show and they would get me
sponsor you one,
Yes. But at the same time, I was signing a publishing deal with Sony.
In Nashville?
In Canada.
Oh, in Canada. Okay.
Yeah. And they said they would help me try to get my visa. And so we started that process. Yeah. And in the after, I don't know, maybe a year of like paperwork, Sony got my visa for me. So I was able to like legally live in the US. And then I booked a series called Hell on Wheels.
I saw that.
Sent me back up to Canada to film that. I filmed that for 3 years. And then at that point, I had enough money to like get a place in Nashville. And that's when I made the move.
Did you always know you wanted to do country music?
Yes.
It's more country pop, I would say. Is that what you would call it?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, so like I said, I grew up on a cattle and bison ranch, and my parents, like, they are ranchers. That's what they do for a living. So
were they like, what? Was it foreign to them that you wanted to do this?
I think, I mean, foreign as in like they had no connections or way to like help me. They're like, I don't know who to connect you with to like get your foot in the door. It was really my acting agent that he connected me with my first managers and connected me with Sony, and he had some like people that he knew in the industry, and that's how it started. But my parents were always supportive. They just didn't have like a way to be like, hey, meet this person or meet this person. I just had to do it myself.
Because I think there's a lot of people who want to be in the music business or have this dream or this passion and then come from a family that is like, get a real job.
Yes. I mean, my parents did make me go to, I went for 1 semester of college because they're like, you have to get a degree.
Yeah.
And I dropped out.
What did you take?
So I started to go into nursing.
Oh.
Because my mom's like, I think you'd love nursing. Yeah. And I did a job shadowing at the hospital.
You're like, why? I've never said I wanted to be a nurse.
No. And I literally went and like followed a nurse around. This woman got 2 stitches. I threw up.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is not for me.
So you dropped out of nursing school. The nursing dream was gone for your mom. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's when I moved to Vancouver. So like right after my first semester of college.
Okay. Gotcha. You moved to Vancouver then?
Yes.
Okay. So are you just making trips to Nashville? Are you?
Trips to Nashville. Okay. Yeah. I actually was staying with Carolyn Dawn Johnson.
I know her well. Yes.
She's actually watching my daughter right now.
What?
Yes, she is like such a big part of my life.
We're going to have to FaceTime her when we're done.
Oh my gosh.
Because that is amazing.
Yes. It was like so hard to find.
I would leave my newborn with her.
Oh, she was a doula.
Yes.
She's the best mom.
Yes. Oh, I love that.
She reached out. She's like, if you ever need help, I'm like, I need so much help.
Yeah.
Can you? And
I know you don't know me well, but I also offered to help you with a baby because I'm like, I miss a baby. My kids are always like, the first one that ever gives mom a grandkid is going to be the favorite. I'm like, okay, but not yet because you're still way too young. But
hey, if you are serious,
I am so serious. She's love a
very
baby.
Snuggly.
Yes, I've already told Paige for makeup. I'm like, I will babysit that baby anytime because you miss it. It's hard, but you miss it. Okay. Back to the podcast. Back to the baby. Okay, so you are in Nashville, and are you just like booking rights? Are you just trying to do as much as you can?
I'm like going to Whiskey Jam and Losers and Winners, like just trying to meet people. And I did have one contact, Clay Myers. He works for CMT now, but at the time he was in publishing, and he would help me like set up rights. And again, I was like the girl always that I'm like, I need to write with this person. I need to write with this person. And he'd be like, they don't want to write with you. And I'm like, make it happen.
And could he make it happen?
He made some of them happen. Yeah. I think like I'm a believer in like squeaky wheel.
Yeah, for sure.
Kind of thing. And it's worked for me.
Yeah. And then you also probably would have had to have had the confidence to like, basically you make it happen. I have the tools. You just need to get me there.
Yep.
Did you have that?
I think so. I mean, I hope so when I went to those rooms. But yeah, it was a lot of like writing with whoever would write with me and then slowly working my way up the ladder with like, I wrote with somebody here and they knew this writer here and they're like, you should write with us. And so I would just go and I would do doubles or triples or whatever, like as many songs as I could possibly write.
Were you doing like, they call them like the showcases and stuff? Did you ever do
like just that? Writers rounds or whatever? I did that. And I think right around that time when I was starting to play a lot of like writers rounds is when I met Joey and that deal started to kind of fall into place.
Okay, because he was here.
He was here. Gotcha. Yeah. I feel really lucky. Like I've never met with another label. I've never showcased for another label. I've always just been a big out.
Did you do an actual showcase for them?
I played Boots and Hearts and the label flew up and watched my show. And then after that, it still went on for like another probably 4 months or whatever of them like, I don't know what it's called, like prospecting me as an artist. And then eventually offered me the deal.
So when did you sign with them?
In 2016.
2016.
Yeah. And then right away booked my other series.
So the label signs you.
Yes.
And then you say, oh, by the way, I just booked another series. Are they fine with that? Are they?
They actually were. So it was like I signed the deal and like a month later had booked, it was the lead of the Netflix series. And I called Seth England, who's the owner of the label.
Yeah, because you do have to ask permission for that?
I don't know, like legally, if I'm not sure.
Okay,
but
you felt
I did.
Like you needed to.
Yeah, and I was honestly conflicted because I had just signed this big record deal. And he's like, you should absolutely go do this show, and we will fly up writers on the weekends and fly you home, and we'll make it work. And we did. I think it definitely prolonged my like developmental stage a little bit, just because I wasn't physically in town. But here we are. We made it all work.
How long have you been writing these 19 songs?
It has, I mean, there is a song on there that I wrote back in 2016. And then there's a song that I wrote in November when we were already done and we added it onto so it's kind of spans like a long period. I would say the most of them were in the last 2 years. Okay. But like Sucker Punch, there's a song on there called that. And I wrote it back in like 2016.
Wow. Yep. Okay. So I was going to read a couple of things that someone had said about you. Reviews, not someone, not you're like, wait, someone online? No, a couple of reviews on your album.
We don't want to read what people are saying online.
No, we're not having any of that. Okay. So, and I thought it was kind of ironic, but also really beautiful. So, because it was two. And one said that the album tells the story of perseverance and hope. And then the other one said that it was an epic 19-song heartbreak album. And so it's like, depending on which one you read, I thought it was kind of beautiful that it was all summed up into one, even two, like depending on someone's state that they're in their own life or their own mood or what they're going through. So if you're saying like the first song was written back in 2016, did a lot of that come from like what you've gone through relationship-wise or career-wise?
Absolutely. I mean, relationship-wise and career-wise. There's a song in there called Nightingale that is about just like, it really is about like that confidence that I came to Nashville with that like after years and years of hearing no has dwindled a little bit, and that I would love to like get back to that girl because she was probably just more like, happier.
Had you felt like you'd become jaded a little bit?
Of course. Like I think, you know, my initial thing when we do thing is like protection, because you get like so hurt after you put yourself out there so many times. And so even now I'm like, anything that they're like, hey, we think this is going to happen, I'm like, I'm going to wait till it happens to like get my hopes up.
You don't get too excited. Yeah. Because at the beginning you get your hopes up a lot.
You do because you're just so innocent to the industry and just how it all works. And you know, I mean, there's so many more no's than yeses in this industry.
Yeah. And it's definitely one of those, what was it? It was a Dixie Chick song called Heartbreak Town. Did you ever hear that one? Yeah, This Ain't Nothing But a Heartbreak Town. And I remember hearing that in the lyrics, and I thought like, unless you've been or lived in the music industry, you would have a hard time relating to this song because it was just so true. But
there's another like, I think it's Caitlin Smith. It's called This Town's Killing Me. And it's just like,
oh, you're like, oh.
You know, but it's so true. And it's like, I always say like this town is like the most inspiring and the most depressing place all at once.
Yes.
Because everybody is so immensely talented, but everybody's hearing no all the time. And it's like, that's a weird juxtaposition, those two things.
Yeah, kind of like those two reviews.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and it also is one of those towns, it's like, if you're still here, I mean, you have built up some thick skin, because a lot of people, I think it just sends them back home because they just can't fathom going on and being married and bringing a baby into it.
I know. I know.
When did you meet your husband?
I met my husband back in 2012, I think.
And when I looked him up, I was like, I know him. Where do I know this guy from? And he was on Nashville. And I used to love that show when it was on. So I totally knew. And I was like, wait, I remembered he was the character on Nashville where he dated Scarlett, right? The blonde-haired one. Yeah,
yes, he was the veteran with PTSD. Yes. Yeah. That was his first acting gig. So up until, I mean, he knew, because we had been together already for, my gosh, like 6 years before he booked his first thing.
Did you meet because he's in the music business too?
Yes, we met songwriting. So we actually, his ex-girlfriend, I wrote with her, and she invited, they weren't dating, they were like friends. And they had already broken up and she was with somebody else. But she's like, you should write with me and Jake. And I was like, yeah, for sure.
Was she thinking it as a love interest or no?
I think she was just like thinking it as a right.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know what she was thinking, but... and we wrote that day. I had a different boyfriend at the time. And Jake called his mom that day and was like, I'm going to marry her. And I still had another boyfriend for a year. And we were just friends. And, you know, and then naturally my relationship ended. And Jake like swooped in. Yes.
And he's from here.
He's from South Carolina.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So I remember his mom's like, she's Canadian. She doesn't live here at the time I didn't. And she has a boyfriend. Like she's not available. Yeah. And he's like, just wait.
Wow.
Yeah. So
I love that. Okay. Well, I'm going to ask you more about him later when I ask you about your baby. Okay. So back for the 19 songs, when you were picking the songs, one of the things I heard you say about the album was that there's a song on here for everybody. When you, as an artist, are picking the songs to go on your album, because you wrote the majority of them or co-wrote the majority of them, are you picking songs thinking, I relate to this, I love this song, or do you go into it thinking someone else is going to love this song? Like, is that a thought?
I think for me, I'm sure the label thinks more like that. Right. For me, it's like, what do I love? Because I am such like, I truly am a country listener fan. Like I listen, that's what I listen to. And so I always think like, if I like it, I know I am like an audience. Yeah. And I have an audience that probably listens very similar to how I listen. And I was thinking like, well, if I relate to it, if it means something to me, hopefully it means something to all these other girls or males who listen to my music too. And I'm sure the label thinks on a much more strategic level.
They're like, oh, that's great for you. Well, I just think too, especially with these songs, and a lot of them are about heartbreak, is that a lot of women are probably listening thinking, oh my gosh, she's telling my story, which we probably all have songs from our childhood that like, or not childhood, but teenage years that we hear and remind us of like a breakup. Or I was listening to it yesterday, and then I was listening to it on the way in today. The one song that I resonated most with is called Coming Home to You. And the reason I resonated most with that song was, and if someone hasn't heard it yet, it is all about that kind of like keeping up with the Joneses. We think the grass is greener on the other side. But there's a lot of just really witty, well-written lines in it, like talking about like someone's always going to have a longer driveway. Someone's going to have a bigger closet. Someone's going to a nicer car and, you know, have a bigger view than you looking down. And it's so easy to compare yourselves. But like the whole premise of the song is like, if I'm not coming home to you, like the house doesn't matter. Did you, when you wrote that song, were you like, was that a personal experience song?
So that song was one of the ones I didn't write on the record.
You didn't write? Okay.
No.
Well, we'll say you did.
But my girlfriend wrote it. A bunch of my girlfriends wrote it, 3 of them. And I heard it, and I mean, that's definitely something that like I've struggled with social media, like we all do. Like you, with my relationship, with my stuff, my car, my house, whatever, and with my career, like just comparing at all times. And every time that I like hit a milestone, the only thing I want to do is like celebrate with like my husband and my people. And that's where it's like, none of it matters if you don't have that. And there's always like that story of like the huge celebrity that goes home and is alone at the end of the day. And like, you know, so it's like, what's the trade-off? Like none of the material stuff matters if you don't have that. And I heard the song and I was just like, this is how I feel. Can I have this song? And my girlfriends were like, yes, have it, please.
And I bet so many people I feel like it should be everybody's like life mantra, because it's just something, it's really, not even in this business, but just like to lose. Because how old are you?
I'm 33.
You're 33. Okay. So I'm like 15 years ahead of you. Plus 15 years plus 3. And like,
but it's still probably something that you like.
Oh, for sure.
Everybody.
But even like when I think of us, when we came here and what we had and where we lived and kind of going up through the years and what we have now, like it really doesn't matter. Like it truly is about who you have to come home and celebrate that with. And I did this thing in Canada last week on the social for the podcast. And all these people were like, oh, this is amazing. This is so great, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, this is great. Thank you so much. And my 14-year-old who has Instagram, was looking at her Instagram and it said that she had mentioned me in a comment. And I was like, that's odd, because usually I'm like not anywhere near that. And she had reposted a photo of me on it. And underneath she said, proud daughter moment. And I was like, that just negated everything else from that day, because that's the thing. It's like when you build that life of like your family, and so it's like you can see that.
To have those people like support you in those moments, and also like support you in the moments that things aren't going as good,
because they don't always go. They don't always go good.
No, for nobody.
It never stays up here forever.
So that makes me like emotional probably.
But when I listened to that song, I felt emotional.
Oh, good.
Because I just was like, this is so, I wish everyone could know that from the get-go, because I think we're always just chasing, especially in the music business too. Like you're always probably looking at somebody else who either started at the same time as you and seems to be on a different path. And you're like, why are they faster? But there's also someone looking at you going, why is she faster than me? Or why is she already married with a baby? Right? Like all these things you don't think other people are wanting. So
there's always somebody who has more or bigger and better than you, or it seems like they do.
It seems like
and I feel like I always feel sad because like we are two grown-ass women and we still feel like, imagine for like a 12 or 13-year-old who maybe doesn't have like the skills yet to like rationalize it, you know?
How has social media, speaking of that, been as an artist for you? Like as a female, I think that would be, could be great.
It is like a double-edged sword for me. Like it's such a tool. I love it. I mean, I'm addicted to it like most people, but it also like, I can tell after I've gotten off of it, I always feel like a little bit more anxious because of that comparison. And it can be like the stupidest things. It could be like her outfit looked cooler. Yeah. Like that's so silly. Yeah. But I still fall into like that trap. Comparison. Yeah. And like you said, especially if it's like career, oh, their marriage looks happier. Right. Oh, they're whatever. Like it's such a fake place.
Yeah.
And for me too, like I post my best stuff. We all do.
Yes. Yeah. A highlight reel. Yeah.
Exactly. So,
and then you'll see like a celebrity couple they're like, I didn't know they were going to get divorced. They look so happy. Like online on what they post on their social media.
I know. But I think it also is like such a tool to like get my music out there. Yeah. And
do you read your comments and interact with fans like through messages?
I do. Okay. Yeah, I do. And there's some that like I want to like so bad like snap back at if they say like something mean.
So how do you, because people have very distinct ways that they believe in handling that. What's your kind of philosophy on if somebody sends you a mean message or a troll?
I always try to like respond kindly.
Okay.
But do I type out a message and delete it that's not as kind? Yes. And do I run it by my husband and he's like
just for your own
Yeah, I'll literally be like, I'm going to respond this and Jake will be like, no, you're not. Like don't play that game.
Yeah.
But sometimes you just like want to stoop to that level and then you're like, no.
Yeah.
And take the high road.
Yeah. But for the most part, are people that interact with you pretty great?
So supportive. Okay. So supportive. It's just like the odd person where I'm like, you know, what are you doing?
It is. People will say to you, oh, just remember they're not happy. And then you're like, but in that moment, especially too, I think if they make a comment about something that you maybe are already insecure about. If it's something that they say to you, like, you're a terrible singer. You're like, well, actually, I'm not a terrible singer, so you don't affect me. But maybe if they point out something like a flaw that you've always kind of been self-conscious of, I think you're like,
I'm definitely like feeling the, you know, oh, you're already working? Like shouldn't you be home with your baby? And like that has been like the hardest. Like you can say something about my career or whatever, but that like gets me a little bit.
Because it's like I would like to think that, because I have seen, not on yours, but on other people's social medias who have babies, who have gone back to work. And I've seen on their pages too, like, oh, I didn't vacation until my child was 7 or 8 and, you know, must be nice. And often think like those are probably the women who really wish they could take a vacation and are unable to. So they'll project it onto you. How has been being a new mom? Well, first of all, how's being a new mom? Then I'll ask you about being a new mom on social media.
Yes. Being a new mom is so amazing. I mean, it is like the highest of highs. And then there's lows too. Yeah. Where
Did you always know you wanted to be a mom?
Not really, honestly. Like I didn't have that thing that some girls talk about when they see a baby and they're like, oh, my ovaries. I never like felt that way.
The ping.
Yeah. But what I did know is like, I am so tight with my family and my husband's so tight with his family. And I wanted that one day when I'm older. Like I want to have adult children that are like my best friends. And I knew that if we wanted that, we were going to have to do this. And it's been like such a joy and amazing. Like she's still like so squishy and she smells so good. Like, you know, the baby.
They do. I know.
They smell so good. But it's also challenging. Like before here, you saw I brought my like little cooler to like breast.
She came in with her breast pump. Yeah.
A breast pump. And like I'm dropping off milk and my husband's coming to pick up milk. Like it's like interesting.
So did you, like, because of your career and what kind of I'm sure you have like a plan, a 5-year, 10-year plan, at least in your mind. Did you try to think when is the best time for a baby, or was there just, it was never going to be the perfect time?
I tried to think when the best time was, and I was having like some like medical stuff that they suggested I should probably try to have a kid if I wanted one now. And so I did time it out with when my record was supposed to come out. And then my record got pushed. So it was like, I was going to plan, I was like, okay, the record's going to come out. And then like 6 months later, I'm going to have a baby. So I'll have time to tour it, like all this kind of stuff. And so I planned that, got pregnant. And then my label's like, hey, we have to push the record because it's not done in time. I'm like,
you're like, wait, but don't you know that's not my plan?
Yeah. I was like, I'm pregnant.
Had you told them yet?
No.
Okay.
No, I like even, I waited even afterwards because of course was like super stressed.
Right.
And then were you recording while you were pregnant or was it done? I was finishing recording. Okay. Yeah. And just, I remember being like, my manager being like, okay, so like March, we're going to do this and this and this. And in my head, I'm like, no, we're not. I'm having a baby in March.
You hadn't said anything yet?
No, because I wasn't like 3 months and I just wanted to make sure everything was good.
Oh my gosh.
I remember like, oh, they're going to freak out. Like they're going to not be happy about this. And they were so supportive.
Okay.
Like
that's awesome because that was one of my questions for you. Like as a female artist, right? Like just as a female in general in that relationship, it's like, did you have that fear of how am I going to do this?
So much fear.
Yeah.
And so much like, you know, are people going to look at me like a mom or whatever? Which I've realized like has not slowed anything down. Right. And it's crazy. I won't like say names or anything, but the amount of female artists that have like reached out to me and like, I want to have a baby so bad, but I'm scared my label. Like, how did you do it? Or how are you balancing it? And that makes me so sad that like all these females are so stressed about having the best of both worlds, you know?
Because you know the men are just like, I mean, John was like, okay, great, see ya. And I was like, great, I have this.
Yeah.
But as the female, I would imagine it would be, will your husband be able to like go on the road with you?
He'll come out for sure more than he would have before. Yeah. And he works from home. He's also a songwriter recording. Yeah. So he can bring his rig and it's very flexible that way. Yeah. And then we have hired people to help us too, just because I am working full time.
Right. Yep. Was there a song on the album that was the most, not important or favorite, but that kind of resonated with you the most?
I think so. The title track, Nobody's Born with a Broken Heart.
Which I love. Because I was, when I saw that, I was like, oh yes, that's so right. As though like I had always known that. But it's one of those things that like, you know, but then when you hear someone actually say it, you're like, wow, that was wise.
Yeah. And I think like the idea of that song once I got pregnant totally changed. That like, you know, my little perfect nugget is going to be, you know, she's not going to know heartbreak or pain or any of those things until she has to, and she goes through it, and she'll have to, and she'll have to learn, and I'll have to teach her and support her, and that'll make her full little being at the end of her life too, like that she got to experience the good and the bad.
Yeah. I was going to ask you before I asked you that, has social media, like being a new mom, being a pregnant mom, I mean, what was that like?
I have like such a supportive community, but like I said, there's the odd comment and it's already things I feel guilty about. Like, you know, I do feel guilty like having to go and do a show and leave her for 24 hours, even though I'm flying through the night to get home, and I'm packing, you know, everything to bring milk home for her, like all this stuff. But I feel guilty. And, you know, so if somebody comments on that, it does like, it'll hit me pretty hard. Yeah. But, you know, I always think that like a normal working mom works 9 to 5. I don't have to do that. And once she gets a little older, I'm just going to bring her with me.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So
I love that. I was going to ask you a question. Okay, wait, I need to find it because, let me see. Oh yeah. If you had advice to give to the younger self, you, 15, 16-year-old girl, sitting in her bedroom, playing the guitar and just being like, I don't know, like I hear what she's saying. It all sounds really great, but I don't know how to actually get there. Like, what would you tell somebody if they're just in this kind of dreaming stage and they don't, like, because you said you didn't have that support system of like a network. If they don't know anybody or they don't have an in somewhere, like.
I would say to like try to get to Nashville. Like if you want to do country music. Yeah. Because like there is around every corner, like somebody in the industry that's like hanging out at this restaurant or this bar or whatever. And like, it is you know, a community here. And if you can meet the people, even if you don't meet the right people right away, but you're meeting people and they're connecting you, I think it's so important to be in this town. If that's the genre you want to be in. You know, for me, it was like everything changed when I moved to Nashville.
Okay. And just networking. And putting yourself out there.
Yeah. And like, and playing and writing as many songs as you can write. And like, write the crappy songs too, because you have to write those to get to the good stuff.
Do you think people worry too much about writing like well, it's not ready to send yet because it's not perfect?
Totally. And I think like especially with like TikTok and stuff now, I think like the more you can put out, as long as it's like of a certain quality, the more the better. You know, I feel like there's so many.
Are people getting found? Is that a true? I mean, you always hear the story of like Justin Bieber getting found on.
Oh, people are getting massively found on TikTok. I think so. Okay. I think so. I mean, that's such like a.
Are labels like scouring social
maybe
media
not like as much as they did like right when TikTok came out, but I still think like, I mean, even my team's still like, let's get a song to blow up on TikTok. I mean, it's such a big tool.
Okay. Okay. One of your songs that blew up, which a lot of people have probably heard, was the duet you did with Justin. I called him Justin. Yeah. Justin Lynch, Thinking About You.
Yeah.
How did that, because it was what, like #1 for like 6 weeks?
6 weeks. Yeah. Yes. It was so crazy.
How did that come to be? Because someone's probably like, well, how did she get that?
Yeah. So he ended up like asking a bunch of girls in town to audition for that song.
Oh.
So my manager like hit me up and was like, do you want to audition for this Dustin song? I'm like, yes. It was right during COVID. Okay. So my single got pulled off radio because of COVID. I wasn't able to go out and do like a proper radio tour. So I went into the studio with Joey. We cut a vocal. I sent it to Dustin's team.
Is it the actual song? Like, have you heard the song or are you just singing anything?
I heard the song.
Okay.
Yeah, he sent it, and because originally it was Lauren Lane on the song.
Oh.
She had a different single at the time, so she couldn't make that the single.
Okay.
So he was looking for a new female.
Okay.
And so I heard her version, and I went into the studio thinking like, okay, I want it to be not too different that it's like jarring that because he's used to Lauren's version.
Okay,
but I want it to be my version.
Yeah.
And we went in there and we tweaked like a bunch of things and some melodies. And sent it off, and then I didn't hear anything for a long time.
Oh, really? Like nothing?
No, nothing. And then
which can be worse than a no.
Totally. You're just waiting.
You're just waiting.
Yeah, you're like, just let me know.
Yes,
either way.
The ignoring part of it. Yeah.
But he followed me on Instagram then like a few weeks later.
So you did not know him at the time? Never met?
I knew him, obviously, but he did not know me.
Okay.
I had met him. I reminded him, I was like, I met you like a couple of times at like events, but I was nobody.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh yeah, I remember. I'm like, you do not remember. But yeah, so I sent it in. He follows me on Instagram a few weeks later.
Oh.
And
so when you see that he follows you, are you like, okay, I think I got it?
I thought so.
Okay.
And I screenshotted it and sent it to my team. And they were like, this doesn't really mean anything.
Yeah, you're like, is this his new way of telling me that I got it? Yeah. The
and
social
still
media way?
Never heard anything for weeks.
What?
And then one day.
Did he send you a message at all? He just followed you?
He just followed me. Yeah. And I didn't want to message him. I was going to play it cool.
Right. Yeah. What does this mean?
Yeah. I should have been like, does this mean I got the part?
Are we in a duet relationship now? Yeah. Like, don't be that girl.
Yeah. But then one day he called me.
Okay.
And he must have got my number from, his team or whatever. I sent it to voicemail because I didn't know.
Because you don't know the number.
No,
It probably doesn't say Dustin Lynch.
It does not. It says, this is a telemarketer, I thought. And he left me a voicemail and was like, I want you to be on the song. We listened to a bunch of vocals and you're the one that like hit me the hardest. Oh. And can you come back in with Joey, your producer, my producer, and me, and we're going to recut it. And I knew that was like another audition, basically, because he needed to see if I could really sing live.
Yeah.
And so we all go to
you can sing live. Like I've heard you do stuff on your Instagram and stuff, which is like live, which
Thank you.
Is so refreshing.
Thank you.
I love that.
This song, that song was like a beast. Like it was like so high. Like I think the highest note's like an E. So
Had you ever sung that high? Like was that in your normal
That's not my normal range.
Okay.
No. But
you wouldn't know it listening to it.
Thank you.
It sounds like you're happy to be there. Thank you. Happy to be in that range.
It depends what time it is. At like 7 in the morning, I'm not happy to be there. But anyways, we went in and we recorded, and it was like really sweet because he showed up like wearing my merch. Like he was wearing like a t-shirt with my face on it.
Oh, I love that. So
like,
you felt comfortable. You didn't feel like you were like the little one. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, did my manager send you that? He's like, no, I went on your website and I bought it.
What?
And I'm like, that's so sweet.
Yeah.
So that's a good indication of how amazing Dustin is.
Do you feel like, what did that song do for your career?
I mean, it changed so much. It introduced me to all of U.S. radio.
Okay. Social media following like increased? Okay.
Yeah. And like just opportunities. Like I did my Opry debut. We did Jimmy Kimmel. We did Good Morning America. I played Nissan Stadium. We played like just the coolest venues all over the country, really.
Yeah.
And also like I got to have like a truly like a lifelong friend out of it. Like he texts me when I, had my baby. He's like, Uncle Dustin like loves, like it's just so sweet.
Yeah.
So
I love that.
I gained a lot from that.
And you were just on, you've gone from that when you kind of felt like you were, you weren't a nobody, but that's what you said.
I was.
And you just debuted the album on the Kelly Clarkson show.
Yes.
What was that like?
It was so cool. So like.
Had you met her before?
No.
Okay.
I haven't actually met her.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Yeah, we didn't.
Oh, you don't interact? Oh, you don't interact? You just, I have the song. Okay.
Yeah. So, which is kind of interesting, but I'm a huge, huge fan.
Yeah.
Like I love Kelly.
Yeah.
And, you know, I had done these things with Dustin, but I never got to like prove myself as a solo artist.
Gotcha.
So that meant a lot to me to like, you know, have my song and my moment just by myself on a, you know, national television.
And probably like for your family watching that back in
gosh.
Canada. Were they just like beaming with pride?
Yes. And my in-laws, like even like my brother, who's like not the most vocally supportive person, he was like, you crushed it. I'm like, oh, that means so much. So
I love that. Yeah. Do you get to go back to Canada a lot?
I go quite a bit. Like obviously during the summer touring a ton, always go for Christmas. And now like having Bowie, my parents are like, you better be bringing her up here like all the time.
Have they come down here?
They were here when I gave birth. My mom came.
Was she in the room? We were literally having this conversation.
She was not, because I had a C-section.
Oh, you had a C-section. Okay.
So she was not. But she came early because I thought that my water broke.
Okay.
Turns out I just peed my pants.
Which happens when you're pregnant.
I didn't know that happened until afterwards that I told people, and they're like, oh, that's happened to me too. I was like, okay, good, because I felt not very cool when it happened.
Yeah, among other things. Yeah. It's just like one of the most humiliating things ever. Yeah.
Luckily, I was at home.
Okay.
But we were like, sure, my water broke. So my mom jumped on a plane.
Like to the point that you called your mom and said, my water broke. And then you had to call back and say...
I called my doctor and I was like, my water broke. And she's like, okay, well, if this and this and this happens, it was your water. And if it doesn't happen, you probably just peed your pants. And the signs never happened. But my mom was already on her way. So we were like...
Did she just stay?
She just stayed.
Because how much longer then did you have your baby?
2 weeks later.
Oh,
so
wow.
She stayed
for 2 weeks.
And then 2 weeks after. And it was like, it was very funny. Like, she was like, I don't want to miss like when she comes.
Yeah.
So yes, I'm here early because you peed your pants. Yeah. But I'm staying now.
But it's crazy. I'm here. I'm not going back. Would you have had her in the room?
Totally. That was the plan.
The plan was for her to
bone was breached. So we had to have a C-section, but the plan was to have her in the room.
We were just discussing that out there of whether we would have had our moms in the rooms or not.
Yeah. Would you have, or did you?
No, I would not.
You wouldn't?
No, I don't know. And my mom actually said, she said, I don't think I could have watched you in pain like that. I think it would have bothered me too. And my mom was a nurse. So I think she would have been giving me a lot of advice.
Or the doctor's advice, maybe.
She would have absolutely been like wanting to deliver the baby herself. Yeah. Yes, and like pushing everybody out of the way.
I think for me, like, I mean, my mom really is my best friend, but I knew she really wanted it.
Oh, okay.
And to be there. Yeah. So I would have, you know.
Did you have a preference on having a girl or a boy?
We really wanted a girl.
You did?
Yeah. I would have been fine with either, of course. But both my husband and I really wanted a girl.
Yeah. Well, probably too, like if you have such a great relationship with your mom, then
And like my husband, he always was like, I've only ever had girl dogs. Like I just feel comfortable with girls.
I only do girls. Yeah. See, and John said he only wanted boys because he only grew up with boys. And so we had one, then we had another, and then we had another. And I was like, you're done. Like this is enough about you.
Yeah.
And he said, I wouldn't know what to do with a girl. He just said, I wouldn't know what to do. And then we had one, and I literally watched his heart go from me to her in the operating room. And I was like, well, that's
different with a girl.
That's you having a girl. Yeah. It's done. Yeah.
It's very sweet to like watch the dad with the baby or the baby girl.
I noticed that you have not showed her, you've showed on your Instagram, like holding her and stuff, but you have left her face conspicuously out. Is that a decision that you've made going forward?
Yeah, I think for now, I mean, we'll kind of gauge it as we go. Yeah. Jake is like so private. Yeah. Even though like he's on social media, he's just like, I want to, you know,
keep some things private,
protect her until maybe she decides. And who knows, like maybe in a year we'll show her face. I don't know. But right now we're like, that's what we feel comfortable with. And, you know, just want her to, there's some weird people out there.
Yeah. And there's very few things that you probably get to keep just for yourself.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. But she, I mean, like, I'll send you pictures. Like anybody who asks about her, I'm like, here's her face. She's so cute.
You can show me after. Yeah, I know. But I did notice that. And I was like, okay, I wondered if I saw, she was not in the music business, but she has a very big like influencer kind of book following. And she said that she stopped showing her daughter's face on Instagram because she started realizing that every time her daughter went to do something, she was picking up her phone to film it. And she was also thinking, wait, am I putting this on Instagram or am I not? And she said, I started making my parenting decisions based on whether I was showing it on Instagram. And I just went, no. I'm done. And I was like, that was very wise.
Yeah.
To think.
Yeah.
Well, I know you are very busy and I could talk to you for another hour, but I know you have to go. What do you have coming up? I know you've got like some shows coming up. You're playing the Ryman, touring the album.
Yes, we are. So we're going out with Parker McCollum, Keith Urban. Awesome. We're announcing another tour right away. I'm going to announce my headlining tour. Hosting the CCMAs with Thomas Rhett
in September.
Yes, super excited.
That's awesome.
So just a ton of touring and I'm already starting to work on the next record.
I love that. Okay, so we'll put all your handles up, but where can people find you? Instagram, TikTok?
Yeah, Instagram, any social media, MacKenzie P Music or MackenziePorter.com.
Okay.
And then wherever you listen to music, you can listen to my music.
Awesome. Well, I'm so excited. I love the album. I've been listening to it since yesterday. So everybody go and take a listen. Thank you so much for being here. It was so nice to get to talk to you.
I'm so glad we got to like hang.
And I can't wait to babysit your baby. Yes. I can't wait to babysit your baby.
Don't tempt me with a good time. I'm going to text you.
Don't tempt me with bringing a baby to my house because I will like be there, bassinet, all set up, stroller, ready to go. John will be like, oh gosh, here she goes. Here she goes again. Well, thank you so much for being here. It was so nice to have you.
So nice to be on with you. Thank you.
Thanks.